Barbie from Warner Bros and Mattel have racked up some of the biggest numbers we've seen from an opening in quite some time. The biggest of the year as it's lining up right now, even besting Super Mario Bros. But not to be outdone, Oppenheimer has really overperformed its initial projections coming into this weekend, creating exactly what we projected some weeks ago. This is the biggest box office weekend of the year to date. It's Barbenheimer. Let's get into it. Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. It's another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. The Barbie movie from Mattel and Warner Bros. Was coming into the weekend with perhaps 100 plus, maybe 120 million, depending on the projections that you watched. Box Office Pro that we covered earlier in the week had the rosiest picture, putting the high side of the Barbie opening somewhere close to 150 million, and it looks like this time Box Office Pro had the closest bet. Barbie, as of right now, Sunday morning, is estimating a $155 million box office open here in the domestic market, and that may be a little bit short because, as has happened in the past, we've talked about this before, when you have a movie that is pacing well ahead of projections and keeps beating those projections over and over, even by the time we get to the Sunday weekend estimates, those numbers still are more often than not behind reality, which we don't see until Monday or Tuesday. We are seeing some estimates that are going to go over 160 million in the domestic open for this film, and right behind it is Oppenheimer. Now, Oppenheimer had a projection coming into this weekend of around 50 to 55 million I saw on the top end. It has exploded past that, all puns intended. $80.5 million weekend estimate right now. In some inexplicable world, it looks as if Barbie and Oppenheimer have fed each other the box office. It's just insane. And I don't know if we've ever seen anything quite like this on an opening weekend. And kudos to these two studios and these two films from a financial and business perspective for just really doing some great marketing, getting butts in seats, making these movies very popular opening weekend. But the real question is, what happens after opening weekend? Do these movies hold on, or do these movies fizzle out? I think one of these movies is at least potentially in danger of having that happen, and that's Barbie, because the opening weekend was so big, this could actually wind up looking like an MCU title that's very front-loaded. This is very high, but of course there's no previous metric to gauge this by. Not really. The closest thing that we might have is Super Mario Bros. Movie, but the Super Mario Bros. Movie had one thing going for it, and that's when people came out of the theaters, they were very excited by it. Universally, the movie was adored. The marketing delivered something visually to get people in on opening weekend, and then the movie itself kept them coming back. I don't know if I can say the same thing for Barbie, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's go to Oppenheimer at $80.5 million. Again, way ahead of projections. An excellent job there. Not all the international numbers are in for all of these films as of right now. As I'm recording this, they probably will be by the time we do the Sunday live show at 6 p.m. Eastern today on July 23rd. But we have so far got all of the numbers for Oppenheimer. And check these out. $80.5 million domestic. 93.7 million international for a total of 174.2 million. That's really a great start for a movie like this. This is a 3-hour monster of a film. Of course, it got prime placement in every single IMAX branded theater, which was to the detriment, of course, of Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible 7: Dead Reckoning Part 1. And the reason is, as we've mentioned before, Oppenheimer was shot using IMAX cameras for the bulk of the film, and that creates a brand ambassador situation where IMAX theaters are going to give deference to Oppenheimer, and I believe they have IMAX branded screens for 2 to 3 weekends. And with a movie starting like this, it seems the hold will be well enough for IMAX to feel confident to keep them there, although Tom Cruise, Paramount, and Mission Impossible 7 are going to be looking to get back into those premium large format IMAX branded screens as soon as possible. And here's Barbie. Obviously, the international numbers have not clocked in yet for the numbers. However, Deadline magazine, Nancy Tartaglione is estimating about another $160 million internationally for a $300+ million start for Barbie. But hopefully these numbers will be updated by the time we get to the live show this afternoon. Let's talk about the rest of this box office. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 slipping down to right now the 4th place position behind Sound of Freedom, which racked up another incredible weekend with $20 million, besting Mission Impossible only by a few $100,000. Again, these are estimates as of right now, so that could change. That 3 and 4 position could easily flip over depending on how actuals come out for Saturday and Sunday performances. Won't know that for another day or two. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, again, slipping down into obscurity with $6.7 million, barely beating Insidious: The Red Door. That really shouldn't be the case. Indiana Jones is total now at $159 million. That's only $34 million or so more, $35 million more currently than The Sound of Freedom. We did a video earlier this week suggesting that if this trend continues, and it's looking definitely like it is, Sound of Freedom is only 4 days younger than Indiana Jones. The domestic haul for Sound of Freedom at the end of its box office run is probably going to beat Indiana Jones, and I'm putting it in the probably category now based on this weekend's hold, even with all this new competition coming in. Of course, the odd man out, the one who got most beat up this weekend with the new competition, it's Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning Part 1, and you can see here how much wind it took out of this movie's sales. Now, any other box office entry out there that had gotten maybe this kind of beat up in the second weekend by 2 huge new blockbuster entries, I'd say was probably dead and gone after this point. And that may still be the case with Mission Impossible. We have to wait a little bit, but I keep reminding folks, these Tom Cruise films, these MI films, are big, leggy, international performers. They tend to hang around for a while, so it's not the end of the story yet, although certainly Tom Cruise and Paramount Pictures are wishing for a little bit better performance at this point. Given Barbie and Oppenheimer's extreme overperformance in the first weekend, as I mentioned earlier, we have to question how well will this leg from here. Is it going to continue at this pace with modest 40 and 50% drops into the second weekend, or are we perhaps going to see something sharper, meaning that most of the audience is front-loaded into both of these films? We just don't know yet, again, because there's nothing else out there to really compare it to. When you have DC films and you have a Marvel Cinematic Universe title, we have huge, long histories of things to compare to. We don't really have that with this. Now, Oppenheimer seems to be a big crowd pleaser. I haven't heard too many people complain about the film in any way, except for its runtime, perhaps. But with Barbie, it's become a very different story. While the trailers for Barbie looked incredible, and I've talked about them for some time, the first teaser trailer that came out, I was blown away at how great a job the production designers and everybody seemed to do, especially with Margot Robbie playing the titular character in this film. Everything looked like Barbie. I thought this was going to be a huge hit. Everything in Barbie world looked absolutely spectacular in this film. The houses, the streets, the cars, the props, everything, right down to the fake drinking of tea and coffee in the morning. And it was just amazing how well thought out it was from a visual perspective, from a recreation of the Barbie world perspective. And that got a lot of butts in seats. It had girls, young and old, alike, dressing up to go to see this movie. The problem, however, is what happened when they saw the movie. And they were treated to a story that was very steeped in, let's just call it, some left-wing feminist politics. And it wasn't subtle either. And it wasn't just a few quips. It was the entire plot of the film. And since then, I have seen a lot of posts on social media of people walking out of this movie very confused and very disappointed with what Greta Gerwig did to this. Again, from a marketing perspective, it worked great because they really didn't put much of any of that in the trailers themselves. Sure, would a few jokes about Ken being a dope and all this kind of stuff been fine? Absolutely. But when you take it to the furthest degree possible and the entire film revolves around what looks like a gender studies degree, you're going to turn a lot of people off. And I don't know how well this movie is going to hold up going forward. It may or may not. It's just impossible to know as of right now. But that really doesn't matter because Warner Bros. Still has the bragging rights for having one of the best openings of the year, especially after such disasters as The Flash. hopefully they can find a few more wins between now and the end of the year. Now, Universal Studios, definitely very happy with Chris Nolan and Oppenheimer's opening and hoping for a very lengthy, healthy leg out. Paramount, again, as I mentioned, still waiting to see. I don't think they're giving up on Tom Cruise yet, and I wouldn't either. And those movies tend to have good, healthy financial shelf lives after they leave the theaters, as will Oppenheimer, and I'm sure Barbie as well. So that's it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you seen either of these movies? If you did, what did you think about them? Where do you think their respective box offices are going to go from here? Drop a line in one of those little comment sections below this video. Hit that like and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you on the Sunday live show at 6 o'clock. Take care.